Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. Randy Swaim joining us, our Marshall Goldsmith certified executive coach. That's him. Coaching for Relevance, the name of his company. He's from the Dallas, Texas area, but helping so many leaders and executives all over the world with his work. We're excited for him to be back here to talk more about leading and his teams and how he overcame so much, and he's here helping you do the same. Welcome back, darling. How's everything?
Doing good, doing good. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you. Can't complain. Another good week here. Fall is in the air. Excited for Halloween. I'm like a kid. What about you?
There you go. And you know what? It is good because it's really good. Obviously, a lot of what I do is within aviation and everything, and jet pilots and stuff like that too. But yeah, there's as you know, with the documentary and the Hollywood movie about coming out pretty soon here. That's going to be kind of going worldwide probably. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thanks for filling us in. And also got to commend you, right, with your work of serving our country. Thank you for that. And for those
Thank
that
you.
don't know, tell us a little bit of that background, if you don't mind, and what brought you here today. And we're ready for the topic, too.
Oh, okay. And so you want me to just give a short version of my background?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, okay. And yeah, most of my background, and you see this in the stories in the movie and also in the autobiography and everything. But uh, so much of my dream has been, and what my journey has been, is in aviation and flying in the military and all that. And then for the last, oh, actually, for about the last 25 to 30 years, I've been focused on bringing a lot of that awareness to, professional flight crews and jet pilots and things of that nature, and instructors who are going to teach those folks and things of that nature and everything. And some of the people that I've worked with, I'll just mention this just very quickly, and this can be somewhat in a hint for today. But one of the guys that I totally have always appreciated, and you see this in both stories, the movie and the documentary, is General Richard B. Myers, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from 2001 to 2005. But he was also the squadron commander when I was in the 335th Chiefs back in 1980, 1 to about 1985. And one of the things that I tell people is I learned so much from him uh, about leadership and all that, but not one thing was because of anything he verbally told me.
Yeah.
What
Go
it
ahead.
was I truly developed and became and all of that because of what I saw him do, apply, create, and engage with, and how he did that. And he's the finest leader with which, in fact, I was talking with a jet pilot that I had kind of worked a little bit with about 2 days ago, and and we were talking about my uh, the movie and the autobiography, and it was kind of interesting because I mentioned Richard B. Myers and stuff, and he said, "Oh yeah, I met him one time, long time ago." I said, "Really?" Kind of thing. He said, "Yeah." We talked for just a minute, but just in my story, you'll see that's what he's the guy that I so appreciate because I've learned so much about him and about leadership and really doing the great job and everything. So yeah, just part of the story.
Thank you for sharing that. What did you want to enlighten us with today? What path are we walking down today, darling?
What I'll do here today is I'm going to kind of bring out a little thing, and a little bit of it, I will say, is just a little bit of a follow on. It's not a direct thing, but from last week, you remember I was talking about this path, the path of drifting, and how people do that, and how you don't want to do that, and be aware of that. And remember, we were talking about drifting, and I mentioned sometimes when a team is drifting, it may be that the factors are putting it about to the side a little bit here, that's a better place for them to be successful, or it can be a stressful time and everything. And so, last week, you remember we talked about this aspect of drifting and some of the uh, problems with that. But here, it's not a direct bring out from that, but it is the key aspect of leadership, and it's sort of true when you're talking about organizational maneuverability concepts, which are unpredictable environments where the factors that are coming on scene are not exactly the same as what you may have expected and things of that nature. And what it is I'll just kind of throw it out here real quick and then I'll mention some things about it. But it was actually, I heard it was actually stated, and it's just a short thing, but it's very true. And the listeners may remember the name John Bevere, and he's a faith-based person, and he kind of came out with this. But as soon as I heard him say that, I said, you know what? That's pure leadership too. It's not just, you can put it in a faith-based concept or realizing your leadership in developing, what's that happening. But what I'll do is I'll share just a quick thing that he pointed out, and I'll mention a couple of things about it to sort of bring a little bit of a picture out for it, and then we can continue on there. But one of the things that I'll just give you the quote that he said, which was very good. Like I said, as soon as I heard this, I said, you know what, that is leadership, and I said
Mm-hmm.
it's very effective in challenging situations and everything. But here's what he said. He said, when you're talking about, and he said it in the concept of when somebody is, doing something, they have to do this. But I also bring in this aspect that when you're leading your team, guess what? You have to be aware of this. And I'll kind of give a couple of insights into that. But here's the quote that he said, and it is exactly right. At the very end of his talk, they pointed out some of the bullet points and stuff. And one of the bullet points simply said this, that you have to be able to connect the dots between gifting and calling. And of course, in his concept, it was about, God calling you to do this kind of thing. But in what I want to bring today, it's not so much that. It's like every person on your team, even you as a leader, you have gifts, which means
Mm-hmm.
you have certain capabilities, you have certain abilities to be able to do this and accomplish this, or maybe see this or whatever. Those are gifts. But here's the thing. When you talk about the other thing, a calling is very, very different. And if
Yeah.
you're not a faith-based person or if you're just a leader, what you have to understand is, what is it that is your calling today? And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't mean you just have to put it in one thing. But here's the thing: a lot of times, if you're not doing it with his way, guess what? Your leadership journey, your journey of developing who you are,
Mm-hmm.
is what can generate your calling on that.
Wow.
The idea of, what am I here for?
Mm-hmm.
And, and one of the things, and Jill, I think you know this, that, people have sort of asked me and stuff, and my big calling is, guess what? Bringing freedom to
Freedom to
potential,
potential. Got it.
letting people overcome
Yeah.
the challenges and the things that are holding them back and stuff like that. But guess what? Your gifts are not exactly the same. Now, it doesn't mean that they're not workable,
Yeah.
but here's the thing. Depending on the situation that you are in, or you or your team are in, guess what? When you think about the calling of the people on your
Mm-hmm.
team, what gifts do they have that'll get you there, and what gifts are they missing that'll get you there,
Interesting.
and things of that nature. And so when you're talking about developing your team in a challenging, unpredictable environment, that's an aspect that a lot of people don't fully understand, because a lot of managers today, they just have this thing that my job is to just tell you what to do and go do, and you know what? what you're doing is you're having them just shut their brain off and go do what you said. And you
Yeah.
know what? If you do that, all of this goes right out the window. And if you get sick and you're not at work one day, maybe nothing gets done, you know, who knows, kind of thing. And so the bottom line is when you're talking about leading your team and actually developing your team to be very successful and all that, it's something that you have to think about. First of all, do people have the real calling that they experience? Now, I'm here to tell you that everybody, if nothing else, it may be because of their faith-based, you know, beliefs and all that, or it might be just their journey in growth, you know, that got them to where they are or whatever. But everybody has a calling or two. And it's
Yeah.
not just something that I got to do what I want to do. No, it's not
Mm-hmm.
that. It's just having clarity on what is your real purpose as a person
Mm-hmm.
and what is that calling that you are totally, you know, considering and totally focused on. But what are your gifts? Are your gifts really something that will sort of get you there? Or
Yeah.
if nothing else, what are some gifts that you got to develop and bring into yourself that you didn't have before, kind of
Mm.
thing, and all of that. And the other part of it is if you think about the strategic concept of it, of situations that people find themselves in the strategic concept of it, what you find is that the strategic environments that they are in today may be quite a bit different than what it was 3 weeks ago when they were in a situation. It may be different than what they're going to find
Mm-hmm.
themselves
Yeah.
in a month, you know, kind of thing. And so having true clarity on that and having an aspect of what is the calling that your team truly has for its people and what are they really doing? Like with me, it's really helping people overcome what's holding them back, you know, kind of thing. That's the big calling that I have uh, and stuff that bringing freedom to potential. And and you know what, if you get people sold out on their calling and also you have a sense of what their gifts are, what
Yeah.
their abilities are, is that sort of aligned with the calling? And the bottom line is, to what extent do you need to connect the dots between those two to get those two connecting with each other so that you can really exercise that and achieve that? And so it's just something to think about in a strategic sort of aspect of it
Mm-hmm.
when you're talking about that
Yep.
sort of stuff that is really critical. And like I said, John Bevere put it in a faith-based thing. And if somebody is looking at it from a faith-based thing, yep, that's true. But you know what? It's also true in a strict leadership standpoint because, like I said, there is no doubt in my mind that my calling is to bring freedom to potential in other people. Um, um, and you know, and so one of those things is, what gifts does somebody have? What are they really good at? What are their real skills? Is that going to get them there? Are they just trying to sell somebody on what they're going to do? That's not what you're looking for. What you're looking for is to see the real strategic scenario that you're in, and this is the calling that we're looking to achieve. And by the way, if person A on my team has this sort of as a calling, and person B has this as a calling, and person C has this as a calling, guess what? To what extent can those three all work together? And you know what? As a leader and as a manager, you have to be able to kind of look at that instead of just quoting to them what they should all do, you know, kind of thing. Have, you know, get a picture there of, you know, in the current situation with the team that we have,
Yeah.
what is the real effort for success here? And by the way, when we do that, what are some of the gifts that we uh, need to apply that into? Like I say, put the you know, connecting the dots between those two, and seeing how it's really going to help out for you. So it's just something to think about. That, like I said, when he uh, 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 I was just watching the TV show where he was sort of being interviewed and stuff, and when he said that, I said, "Yep, that's leadership," and it is. And I'm just bringing it from the leadership standpoint because it's you have each of us. I know I do, you do. Each of us have a certain calling. Now, here's the thing: are there people out there that don't really have a lot of clarity on what their internal calling is? Yeah, there are. Because you know
Yeah.
what? There are people out there that have not given any thought to that. And what is my passion in here? What makes me do all of this? What makes me come to work for this company or this team or in this environment? Why do I want to do that? You know? And guess what? A lot of times the calling part of that can be a part of that reason. And so it's just something to think about when you're looking at the strategic aspect of all of that and how those two are coming together. And like I said, as a leader, it's not just about you dictating and telling people stuff
Yeah.
and having them just shut their brain off and not thinking about it.
Yeah.
But some of it is given some questions along the way that help them really determine this, what you're calling. And as a leader, one of the things you also want to do is while you're watching your team interact together, even if it's just at a social thing kind of thing or whatever, when you see your team interacting together,
Yeah.
what do you perceive as what could be the calling in this person or that person? And what are you going to do if you sort of sense that? You know what you can do? You can just go have a chat with them. Nothing that says, hey, you got to fix this, you got to do this different. No, a chat that gets them an
Mm-hmm.
experience of this sort of thing, but also helps them to connect with the gifts that they have. And how are you going to arrange those in such a way that the team is successful? Because they don't have to be exactly like you, kind of thing. You guess what? People are different. When you have two people different, talking to each other, those two people are very often different. Sometimes they're not as different as it seems like it could be, but it's all those are just examples of this when you're talking about true leadership. And guess what? Like I said, when you're talking about what we talked about last week with the drifting aspect of it, you know what? What's your awareness on that? And what's your gifting, what's your calling really on this? If you see that drifting starting to happen, what do you need to do differently? Because you know what? Sometimes it's very simple. I gave the example of an airplane flying. Guess what? Sometimes it's very simple. Just turn back this way 5 degrees and keep it there or whatever, kind
Yeah.
of thing. But again, it's also part of how long it took for you to notice that, kind of thing. But the bottom line is when you're in uh, organizational maneuverability situations, when you're in situations where things get kind of challenging a little bit and things are not just as easily predictable as you would have expected. And probably all of us have heard people that sometimes say, well, that should have been like this, it should have been like that. Well, you know what? It wasn't. And so what should you have done different given that situation? And that's what a lot of people don't typically think about if you look at the way a lot of people respond to that in today's uh, environment. Some people can, but there's a lot of people that instead of doing the right thing at the right time, what they have a tendency to do is to just make excuses for why it just didn't go the way they thought it would.
Yeah.
And you know what? You have to kind of understand what your true calling is. And it's not just calling attention to myself. It's not just saying, blaming it on something else if I didn't do it right. No, it's what is the calling. Like I said, my calling, as you well know, bringing freedom to potential in all that I do and overcoming things and making other people be able to do that and all this sort of stuff. And that's true. But the bottom line is it was a very good message that he brought out. And again, I just share as the last point here. but he just brought it out as, as a leader, connect the dots between the gifting and the calling of your people
Mm-hmm.
so that they can connect those two, and they understand how, if this is my calling and this is
Yeah.
what I want to accomplish, you know what, I may have to focus on this one aspect a little bit more because I'm not as strong in that area or whatever, kind of thing. And what it can do is, if you do that well and you're a real leader on that, it can get your people ready for some unexpected success and to be aware of situations. Because really, that's part, if you think about this aspect of connecting the dots between gifting and calling in a person, guess what? That's part of situational awareness. It's not just saying, okay, here's where we are, we're moving this fast, this is the weather out there, or anything like that. A lot of situational awareness is within here.
Yeah.
And can we really do that in an effective way? And so it's just something to think about. That, like I said, when I heard him say that, uh, 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 I said, you know what? That's leadership. It is very much so. And when you're talking about things that are kind of going crazy, like if drifting is coming on board, or something else, kind of thing. Um, those two things, being able to connect the dots between those two in your people, but also within yourself, is huge. And so
Yeah.
I just throw it out there as just something to think about.
Got it. Well, thank you for that. And we still got 5 more minutes left in your show. And not everybody knows their calling, though, I must say, right? I think we're all born with something, but sometimes it's hard to evolve or to get out. Some people go through life not knowing their calling to the very end. How do you make it possible to help people really understand and know what they're meant to do?
Well, what I would say on that is, it's a good question, by the way, Jill. Thank you for asking it.
You're
Very
welcome.
good question. But it's one of the things that a leader has to truly understand. It's not just about you dictating and telling. It's about you being able to ask the right questions.
Questions. Yeah.
And a lot of times when you ask the right questions, they understand what they've been hiding without even being aware of it. Oh, wow. And they may, if you've approached them in a strict dictatorial kind of thing, they may have gotten
Yeah.
away from it and thrown it aside because they just shut their brain off. You don't want that. You want your team able to really process and be able to do that. And if you get people that can do that, now some people, like you implied there, some people may take a couple of days to really get it. And you know what? They may need to think about that for a couple of days. But as a leader, guess what? A few days later, you can say, how's your thinking coming on that? What are you coming up with? What does it sort of look like? And get them kind of responding and stuff like that. But I'll tell you what, also, if you know yours, like in my case, bring freedom to potential kind of thing, and that's the real thing, helping people
Mm-hmm.
overcome that stuff and everything. But if you know what that is on yours, and you employ it and communicate it correctly and right, guess what? Some amazing things can happen because their feeling of your reaction is sometimes a lot better and a lot more amazing than other people might have realized. And so all of that is asking the right questions, having some of the wonderful conversations where you're not just dictating and pointing fingers at them, but you're having those conversations that get their processing going within themselves. And, if they come up with something, okay, what's the value of that? Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I tell you what, what's the risk of that? When was the last time that came into play for you? Oh, wow. Yeah, good point. And, kind of thing. What do you need to be aware of, going forward, and things of that nature? Those kind of questions can get somebody really considering that. And then it also sets a stage for where you can connect the dots between those two, the calling and the gifting. And that's huge. A lot of people don't fully understand that. But as a leader, those are some skills that a leader needs to have.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for sharing that. And thank you. We are good. Now, if someone does want to reach out to you, I know you're very modest about that. Please share, how we can contact you.
Okay. Well, what you can do is if you go to my website, it's coachingforrelevance.com. If you go to my website, at the very bottom of the home page, it has my cell phone number and my email. And so if somebody wants to, and you've heard me say this before, but I don't do, hard over, sales calls, cold sales calls or anything like that. If somebody has a need, yeah, we'll come up with something. But if somebody just wants to have a chat, that's cool. We'll spend a little bit of time and chat about it. So if somebody wants to call, that'll be great.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And always a pleasure having you here, my dear. And good luck. Cannot wait to see the movie coming out. Just promote that for us if you don't mind. Tell us a little bit about it.
It's very much like the movie, but it's my whole story, and um, it's a story about how I became. It definitely involves my military flying and stuff like that, and a lot of my flying career, but also how I learned and how I was developed and how I became good leaders, good managers, and stuff like that, and got into that role and all. But then it also breaks into account some of the struggles that I had, and how I reacted to some of them, and how I learned and developed to be able to overcome some of that. And it also holds a few examples in the last probably 10 to 15 years that are sort of amazing in what my journey has become, and how I'm doing it a lot different than I did 35, 45 years ago.
Right.
And so it's it's a good picture on that. And I will say this, that a lot of people, in fact, I will say this, that I was on a uh, um, NPN Hub
Mm-hmm.
roundtable event for authors the other day, and
Great.
they mentioned one thing, but the head of it actually put the link into theirs of the little minute and a half video of the conclusion of my movie and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, uh, and a couple of the people that watched it just made amazing comments about it. So I think that there's a little, uh, I think there's some amazing um, aspects uh, growing out there that makes people want to, watch the movie. And I'm looking forward to that. And it's just because, like I said, my movie, it's not about calling attention to myself, but you've heard me say this before. But
Mm-hmm.
if I pass away, and 20 years after I'm dead and gone, people don't even remember my name, I'm okay with that. But what I
Mm-hmm.
hope for is that people say, oh, 20 years ago, there was this guy, he brought out an insight, and I
Yeah.
brought that to my life. And boy, it made a difference. It was revolutionary for my life. And I'm just so glad of that. If
Beautiful.
that's the case, then I'm happy with that, because that's what I'm about. It's just not about me. It's about hopefully the difference you make, and just what people have seen and become.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, darling, and cannot wait to connect. Can't wait to meet you in person one of these days. It's been years, too long, but we'll make
You
that
know what?
happen
I'll tell
soon.
you what, I will look forward to meeting you in person, my friend. No two ways.
I
I
know.
totally value getting on with you here, and I totally appreciate you, my friend.
Same here, sweetheart. Thank you. Talk soon.
Okay,
Bye.
take care. Bye bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.